Hi, I'm Rev Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years. This year, I decided to go through the text, a paragraph or two at a time, asking Jesus for clarity as I did with the lessons. And then I write from that clarity, and that's what I share with you. So today, let's go ahead and get started. And today we're looking at chapter 2, section 2, the atonement as defense. And we're on the last paragraph for that one, paragraph 7. The atonement is a total commitment. You may still think this is associated with loss, a mistake all the separated sons of God make in one way or another. It's hard to believe a defense it cannot attack is the best defense. This is what is meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. They will literally take it over because of their strength. A two-way defense is inherently weak, precisely because it has two edges and can be turned against you unexpectedly. This possibility cannot be controlled except by miracles. The miracle turns a defense of atonement to your real protection, and as you become more and more secure, you assume your natural talent of protecting others, knowing yourself as both a brother and a son. Like most people, I used to believe that forgiveness was a sacrifice. I thought it meant giving in and inviting people to welcome me. For instance, if I forgave my husband for some perceived mistake, then he would just do it again because now there'd be no consequences for his actions. But really, he did anyway. So holding the grievances never helped me in any way. But since it was the only defense I knew, I thought I couldn't afford to let it go. Then I began to learn as I studied the Course that my defense of making him guilty and making sure he knew he was guilty didn't work. Not only that, it was actually hurting me as much as it did him. Every time I projected guilt on him, I reinforced the idea of guilt in my own mind. It is not just a single thing that I want to forgive, a single act by any one person, but the idea of guilt itself. This is a reason the atonement is a total commitment. If I hold anyone in guilt, the idea of guilt grows stronger in my mind rather than being healed. Eventually, what has happened is that by letting go of many little and big grievances over a period of time, I've learned that grievances don't really come in degrees. Either someone is guilty or they are not. Either guilt is real or it is not. If guilt is real, I will sometimes see myself as a guilty party. Even if I project guilt so thoroughly that I always see the other person as guilty, it will still hurt me. I will be unconsciously aware of guilt in my mind, which seems to grow as I try to get rid of it. So the cycle goes like this. I feel guilty. Even if I don't yet have a reason for the guilt, I feel it because the belief in guilt is in my mind. It's like an ugly stain or a nasty taste, and I want it gone. It's worse than that because I believe that guilt calls for punishment. I might actually punish myself for the mistake and so feel safe from further fear of punishment. In this way, I get to choose a punishment I think I can stand, and I avoid some imagined or worse, unimaginable punishment hanging over me. The ultimate being death, or maybe hell, which punishes me even after death. But this doesn't work either because now I have taken what I think of as God's prerogative for myself. Thus, I feel or repress even more guilt. In the meantime, I continue to do what never works. I project the guilt outward and people show up, things happen. I decide that I now see the reason for the guilt and convince myself that I'm safe from it because someone else isn't. Jesus will tell us that projection doesn't work because ideas leave not their source. Lesson 132. So blaming someone else and seeing them as a guilty party isn't ever going to get rid of guilt. What if I make enough proof to convince the whole world that the guilt is on someone else. I have not helped myself. I have simply reinforced for myself and the whole world the belief that guilt is real and deserves punishment. And no matter how deeply into the denial I go, there's a part of my mind that knows what I'm doing. It knows where the guilt actually came from, no matter where it seemed to land. This is a vicious cycle with no way for me to win. And it seemed like there was no way out of it. The Holy Spirit is a very gentle teacher, though, and I moved through the process slowly, a step at a time. I would notice a guilty thought in my mind and ask the Holy Spirit to heal it. Or I would notice a grievance and would tell the Holy Spirit I was willing to forgive it. And if it turned out that I was not quite ready to forgive it, I would be given another chance when I was ready to try again. Eventually, I knew there was no grievance I wanted to keep and no reason to keep it. The process moved more quickly at that point. From my present perspective, I recognize that the appearance of guilty people in my life, myself or someone else, is just an outpicturing of the guilt in my mind. I forgive the person or situation as symbolic of forgiving the idea of guilt. That is why when my roofing material was stolen, it never occurred to me to make the thieves guilty. This is what they did because they feel so far from love that they must steal to get what they think they need. It is a clear cry for love. I gave them what they were unconsciously asking for. So instead of picturing the guilt outside of me to get rid of it, I pictured it outside of me so I can see it and forgive it. If my mind is not always so clear on this and I become confused about it, it is usually when I've not forgiven myself or when I feel threatened in some way that still holds meaning for me. The most profound healing was in my relationship with my children. This attachment to these special relationships took a long time to be released. That was because I thought I still needed them and was afraid of losing that specialness. But I did at last accept the atonement for this belief. One year, I finally saw the effect of the miracle when, after much forgiveness, I experienced a Mother's Day that was not dedicated to specialness. Always before, I sat back and waited for gift-wrapped reassurance that I was, despite my fearful beliefs to the contrary, a good mother. Instead, I was grateful for the gifts and for the love that is represented by the gifts. I enjoyed the day very much more than before. The reason it was such a joyful day is that there is no longer a desperate need for the expressions of love. I am both loved and free of the need for proof that it is so. So thank you so much for joining me in this reading. I hope you enjoyed it. If you found it helpful, then please like it. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with another reading. I'll see you then.